Hello and welcome. I'm Randy Bueller. I am joined by Eric Froelich, and we are getting ready to watch the Magic Online Championship match. It's going to be best 2 out of 3 formats. Magnus Lanto and Jasper de Jong have gotten themselves here. They're going to be playing Vintage, then they're going to be playing Modern, and if they split those, they'll be playing Standard to see who's going to be the Magic Online Championship. Who's going to be the Magic Online Champion? What's going on so far with these hands, Eric?
Jasper's hand had no lands in it. It looks like he had a Mox Ruby, but nothing he could play on turn 1. No way to actually cast card drawing spells. That was a Mox Sapphire. I didn't get a good look at the hand, but I think it was a keep, but not with Mox Ruby. Magnus's hand is good.
Yeah, he's on the play. He's going to Cabal Therapy. He knows the deck list, but it's still kind of a blind name.
It is a blind therapy.
It's going to resolve. What would you name here if you're Magnus? I mean, pretend you can't see Jasper's hand, obviously.
I think one of the cards that you're going to be most likely to name in the dark is going to be Force of Will, and
that is
exactly what he names.
And
he's got a powerful hand. Next turn, he's looking at potentially just casting Time Walk. He's not going to be too far away from casting Dig Through Time. He's a couple mana sources away from snapping back a Time Walk. So lots of good things.
Or snapping back Cabal Therapy is not awful. All right, you saw Magnus write down all the cards. The information he gets from that Cabal Therapy is also nice.
Yeah, it's really big. A lot of the other powerful cards you might want to name with Therapy, they cost 1 mana, and having Mental Misstep means that Force of Will is just kind of the superior name across the
Now,
board.
what do you think about using the Misstep on this Gitaxian Probe?
I think this is a correct play and a fairly easy one because he just saw his hand.
Because he saw that it was the only one?
It's the only one.
Yeah, normally I think that Mental Misstep, you don't point it at Gitaxian Probe because there's usually better 1-mana targets. But again, that information from the Cabal Therapy, doing good work here for Magnus Lanto.
Yeah, Probe more often than not is going to be the bait. It's just a little bit of extra information, which isn't hugely important, although definitely relevant when you have Cabal Therapies and always useful to have. Not the end of the world whether that resolves one way or another. It's basically just a cycling card.
Another misstep for Magnus.
Because he has Snapcaster Mage, it makes it even easier to fire off that mental misstep on the Probe. If he does face down, let's say, an Ancestral Recall in a couple turns, he'll be able to potentially Snapcaster Mage back to Gitaxian Probe and cast that.
Yeah, well, it looks like the plan here, he's going to go ahead and Time Walk.
Yep.
Not the greatest use of a Time Walk. He's effectively cycling it. He gets to turn it into another card.
It's not the greatest use, but it's a reasonable use. It's drawing a card, you get to play another land drop, and you get to fill the graveyard for Snapcaster Mage and for Dig Through Time.
Looks like he's going to Snapcaster back the Cabal Therapy here.
I imagine so. He may be taking both cards here. He may be planning on sacrificing the Snapcaster Mage. He's going to lead by taking the Gush, I believe.
Well, the Flashback Therapy gets exiled.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry. So just taking the Gush then.
Yeah, name's Gush.
Season Misdirection. We'll definitely want to write that one
down.
Yeah.
That is one you want to know about.
Jasper's hand does nothing.
Draw phase, Island, but the Gush is gone.
He's going to fire off the Time Walk as a cycle here.
He's just hoping he can hit some action before Magnus gets to untap and do anything more to him.
You'd love to find a Planeswalker. That's not a Planeswalker.
Now, how far away is Magnus from Dig Through Time? He's got, what, 3 cards in the yard?
Away. He would love to see a card like Preordain off the top. That'll help dig him into more action and help fuel his graveyard. A fetch land will allow him to just cast Dig Through Time, however.
Meanwhile, the Snapcaster is going to start chipping away. Ooh, Demonic Tutor. Wow.
This is interesting.
You just DT for Ancestral here? Or you guess there's something sexier?
Absolutely not, because he knows the only card in hand is Misdirection.
Oh.
He has no way to actually fight over this Misdirection.
Right.
He would have to misstep his own Ancestral, so definitely doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, I Island there, but obviously Magnus doesn't know if that Volcanic Island could be a blue card.
Well, he's got Black Lotus. He can hardcast Misdirection, which you really don't want to give your opponent. Even though he'll have to use Black Lotus and Misdirection, he gets 3 new cards out of the deal.
So what are you going to Demonic Tutor for?
That's a good question.
Cabal Therapy, maybe? It's not terrible here, right? Get the Misdirection that way?
Well, he can't cast it right away.
Well, he didn't have the second black mana.
I'm not sure exactly what he wants to get here. There's a handful of decent options. Nothing outstanding. I mean, just a 1-mana card draw spell that isn't Ancestral Recall is very good. Preordain and Ponder are both good cards to have. Ooh, Gush is very good.
Gush is not bad.
Yeah,
All right.
Gush has to be the right call.
Demonic Tutors for Gush pays the alternate cost. Well, pays the normal cost of picking up 2 islands. It has this alternate cost of 4U that no one ever plays.
Continues to draw very well. He's going to be able to cast Dig Through Time right now.
Yeah. He's going to take a look. He sees that it's a volcanic island paired with that misdirection.
Ooh.
But like you
Or
said,
you can just play Young Pyro.
Yeah, replays
That's
his
a
land.
decision. I think you play the Dig Through Time when the coast is clear. Try to find some more permission. Cast Young Pyro next turn. The clock is not very important.
Yeah, he gave Jasper a window to draw Flusterstorm, which can potentially stop his Dig Through Time.
Yeah, the Dig Through Time is potentially the most powerful card.
That said, I mean, the couple of 2/1s and the fact that the Young Pyromancer is going to be
he's in
spinning
great
off
shape either
tokens,
way.
even if this Dig Through Time gets countered, it's still going to make a token. He still, essentially, Jasper had to top deck an answer. But he did. I guess you can actually, this is what, the second spell of the turn? So you can misstep 1 copy and pay for the other? This is only a Flusterstorm for 2, right?
It is.
Yeah, I think you totally just misstep 1 copy, pay for the other, and Dig resolves.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You also get the token out of it.
There you go, mental misstep, throwing off an elemental token. Yeah, Flusterstorm's usually a very effective counter in Vintage. But when it's the first spell, when there's only, you're trying to counter the first spell, sometimes they can pay. Yeah, not really much. That misdirection. What, you can misdirect? There's nothing to do with misdirection. I mean, in theory, he could have misdirected Mental Misstep onto a different copy of Flusterstorm, but that doesn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, there was only 1 left on the stack anyway. He paid for the first one. Young Pyromancer and Cabal Therapy are the gets. There aren't really ways for Jasper to come back from this. He doesn't have a way to just win the game on the spot, although the defenses were definitely down for Magus. He didn't get a blue card off of that Dig Through Time, so if Jasper was able to find, let's say, an Ancestral Recall into maybe a Treasure Cruise, he could have done a lot of great things, like Ancestral Recall into Monastery Mentor, into Treasure Cruise, into Gush, he could have just made a ton of tokens and won the game that way by having a huge board of prowess creatures and a full hand. But yeah, he wasn't able to find that.
You see, Magnus knows that there are no sweeper effects in Jasper's deck. I don't think, without Deckless, I don't know that he would have committed the second Young Pyro to the board there. You know, some people will have, you know, the random, like, Slice and Dice or Electricity or some way to sweep a bunch of 1 toughness creatures off the board that they can tutor for. Magnus knows Jasper doesn't have that, so he's able to just go as wide as he can, as efficiently as he can. Cabal Therapy rips apart Jasper's hand. No misdirection, no Force of Will. Here's 6 damage. I don't think there's a card Jasper can top deck here.
There's not.
Mox Ruby, definitely not going to get it done. All right, so Magnus Lanto going to take the first game here. Best 2 out of 3 for Vintage, and then that will hang a match win on the board if Magnus can win the next one. Interesting. I enjoy this deck. I think that Ula and Magnus have shown up with kind of an interesting take. I always feel like Cabal Therapy, Snapcaster Mage are cards that I want to find ways to play with in Vintage, and I haven't really seen a really good shell for either of those cards.
Yeah, I mean, Cabal Therapy is certainly a powerful card.
I mean, the Dredge deck's obviously the one deck that takes maximum advantage of Cabal Therapy. There is a shell where you can play Cabal Therapy, but you're not really playing Magic when you're playing the evil Dredge deck, are you?
And it's exactly how Richard Garfield intended it, I believe.
Magic
But
the way Richard intended it. There you
the
go.
Young Pyromancer and Snapcaster Mage combine very well with a card like Ataxian Probe. Not the most powerful card in the world, but it goes very well with those 2 cards in particular, and also goes incredibly well with Cabal Therapy.
Now, what changes with sideboarding here?
Not too much. I mean, a lot of the sideboards are going to be packed around Workshop Hate and Dredge Hate. I mean, those are the decks that both of these blue decks are going to be a little bit light to on game 1. You can certainly win game 1, and you have powerful cards like Dak Finn and Force of Will to stop the threats, plus Young Pyromancers can come down, or Monastery Mentors can come down and create armies that a Workshop deck can't deal with. But the artifacts are really good. Chalice of the Void on 1 is really good. Sphere effects are good against you. Lodestone Golems are tough to deal with, although, there are lightning bolts.
So you're basically saying they don't have much room in the sideboard for cards for this matchup?
That's right. I mean, they also have a lot of sideboard cards against things like Oath. We see the cards like Containment Priest and Grafdigger's Cage. We have Ingot Chewers across the board. Pulverizes, Wear Tears. None of these cards do anything in the mirror. So we're just basically looking to cut a couple of the weaker cards for a couple slightly better cards. Like a Dak Fane comes out. Maybe a copy of Force of Will here or there comes out, because it is tough to get 2 for 1, although you do really want to stop Dig Through Times and Treasure Cruises and Ancestral Recalls and Planeswalkers if you can.
Now, the one Dread of Night is the one sideboard card that seems kind of perfect for this matchup. This Mentor deck is exactly the reason Magnus Lanto has that one copy, that one card in his sideboard.
It is the reason, yeah. Being able to shut down all the monks makes Monastery Mentor not too impressive. A 1/1 prowess is just not that great. I think that Magnus is the more experienced vintage player, especially with his deck. Looks like
confidently staring over as well.
Really in the tank here. Looking at cards like Grafdigger's Cage, which, you don't want that one.
Yeah, these guys spent plenty of time overnight testing their standard matchup, but they did not really have the chance to test for the finals because they didn't know who they were going to be playing against. So I think you're seeing them look at deck lists. You're seeing them look at all the cards on their sideboard and trying to think through this. This is not necessarily a...
He brought in Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, he brought in Grafdigger's Cage.
I mean, it does shut down Snapcaster Mage's flashback and being able to flashback Cabal Therapy, but it is just not a good card.
I find that it does a little more than I think it does. I mean, obviously, Grafdigger's Cage is in the sideboard primarily for Oath of Druids decks and Dredge decks.
Right.
But when you run into something like, the Gifts deck in particular is surprisingly vulnerable to Grafdigger's Cage. They lean so hard on their graveyard between Yawgmoth's Will and Snapcaster Mage as part of their package as well. And Grafdigger's Cage, I don't know. I'm not convinced it's terrible here. It turns off a lot of the power of Snapcaster, and it turns off the flashback of Cabal Therapy. You don't think that's worth it?
I'm not saying it's terrible. It just does very little. It could win a game. It absolutely could.
That's fair.
But I would not use a slot in my vintage deck to have that in this matchup.
Sort of passively sits on the board and makes your opponent annoyed, right?
Yes. Both these hands are, well...
Yeah, Jasper's thinking about
Magnus's hand is great, but Jasper's hand is short on mana. It has a lot of the cards you want. Fire and Ice is great. Dak Faden, it's just a good card. It's not especially good in this matchup. Mental Misstep is especially good in this matchup. Grafdigger's Cage, as I said, I don't think is very good. Dak Faden, I think he boarded out 1 copy, so seeing the other 2 in his hand is probably not making him too happy.
So you like that mulligan decision?
I think that is a mulligan, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like the second Dak, the only 1 mana. The Grafdigger's Cage, like you said, is a below average card, so he's going to keep those 6. Now, do you preordain here, or do you save a blue card for your Force of Will?
Yeah, you got to preordain. You need action. Just stopping one powerful thing from your opponent and leaving yourself with 4 lands in hand off your mulligan is pretty bad spot.
Yeah, and now Magnus, he knows his opponent mulligan, so he's happy to just trade a card for a card. Preordain is usually good enough to get a blind misstep anyway. It means that he can't defend his Ancestral from an enemy misstep, but there isn't one, so...
He has Force of Will.
Ancestral Recall resolves. Magnus is up 3 more cards. Is he actually going to have to discard here since he did this main phase?
He is. He's going to discard the Bolt.
Makes a lot of sense to not give Jasper the ability to untap that Volcanic, though.
Yeah, I mean, Pyroblast, Flusterstorm.
Exactly. So, Probe, what you got?
I got a lot.
Yes, he does. Could misstep this.
He could, but...
It's not going to. Yeah, without knowing that the Probe is the only one mana spell, Magnus allows this Gitaxian Probe to resolve. You see Jasper writing down the contents of Magnus's hand.
See Magnus writing down the contents of Magnus's hand.
Sure. You want your opponent to know which cards that you want to know which cards your opponent has seen. Which cards are potentially surprises to them in the future turns. Pretty smart, actually.
This game is really slipping quick, though.
And we talked
His
about
hand
how
is just so much better.
we talked about how little land these vintage decks play. You know, the Delver decks will play, 14 land and 2 Moxes typically. The Mentor deck plays a little more. It can get a little flooded, but I mean, still 4 lands out of Jasper's draw so far. It's a lot. I mean, he's on the high side with, I think he's got 24-ish mana sources with all the Moxes.
Yeah, I think it came out to about 23.
Needs action. Needs to maybe try, hopefully resolve a Dax Faden and kind of turn those lands into business cards. Going to be tough against Magnus Lanto's hand, though. Going to be real tough. Ugh, he drew Scalding Tarn off that Gitaxian Probe. Yeah, ships the turn back.
Demonic Tutor. I like leading on Preordain here. I wouldn't mind just finding a Gitaxian Probe to lead into Cabal Therapy. And
sure. Well, he finds Force of Will. A fine card. Especially when he knows he's up 4 cards between the Mulligan and the Ancestral, while he's up 3 cards. Blind Therapy. Wow, and we said last game we saw that his Blind Therapy, his default selection was Force of Will. Is he going to hit again? Is he going to go 2 for 2 on Blind Therapies? He is! Magnus Lanto just working Jasper de Jong. Not only does he get the Force of Will, he sees it's the only spell. That's got to feel pretty good.
yeah, when you've got, again, way more Force of Wills in your hand than your opponent has cards, it's a good spot.
2 Force of Wills, 3 other blue cards, a Demonic Tutor, and your opponent has 5 lands. Yeah, Jasper going to thin. Get the island. Don't want to draw that one. Well, Gush, it's a start. Yeah, Jasper's going to go ahead and Gush. Now, you don't Force a Will Gush, right?
No.
Not even against an opponent where you know it's his only spell?
No, absolutely not.
Magnus agrees with you. Didn't even really think about it. Jasper comes up with a Brainstorm, which is a good start, and a Lightning Bolt. Now, seems like you want to Brainstorm and then fetch. I'm a little bit... Oh, he's going to save the Brainstorm. Might have been tempted to Brainstorm and then play Scalding Tarn as my land there. But I guess he knows about the misstep. He knows that Brainstorm's never resolving.
It's true. Duke through time, that is powerful.
This Brainstorm finds Young Pyro and a Ruby to get it down.
I think he buries the Ruby, puts probably a Dig Through Time on top. This is his best card to kind of hide it that he can't cast anyway.
And then he can go Volcanic into Young Pyro?
Yep.
Makes sense.
So things actually work out pretty good for the first time for Jasper here because he gets the Bolt. That will get Misstep, but that will free up Brainstorm.
There's Lightning Bolt on Young Pyro. As you scripted, Magnus is, of course, going to attempt to defend his Young Pyro with that mental misstep.
This might be the rare time where you actually consider Force of Willing a Brainstorm.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess you know he drew Gush last turn. You know that he has at most 1 spell left in his hand. He's not going to Force of Will the Brainstorm. It's a pretty good Brainstorm. Spell, spell, spell.
Yeah.
Kind of exactly what Jasper needed to potentially get back into this game.
Yeah, when you have all lands, you're definitely looking for spell, spell, spell if you can get it.
Would you have Force of Will there if you're Magnus? You would have thought about it, but would you at the end of the day?
I think so.
You no longer have the ability to Force of Will after you do it, right?
Brainstorm on this particular turn was Ancestral Recall.
Yeah.
We know he's got fetch land, and we know that he's got at least a bunch of lands in hand.
So that was Ancestral Recall.
Effectively Ancestral Recall. Would you Force a Will Ancestral Recall in that spot?
I would.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, then we have our answer, I believe. More or less.
Interesting spot. Young Pyro's going to end this game in a couple of turns, though. One of the best creatures in Vintage by far. All right, here's the Cabal Therapy flashback. Elemental token actually replaces itself. sack it for the flashback, but young Pyro spits off another one. He does not actually know any of these cards, right?
Nope.
So another blind name.
He may know about the Tundra, but
He doesn't
also,
know any of the cards.
Two
he
cards
can
have
name.
been shuffled away for her, or went on top from Brainstorm anyway. He named Pyroblast.
Wow. He's 3 for 3? He's 3 for 3 on blind names with Cabal Therapy.
I think Pyroblast was just a smart name. He's not really worried about Force of Will at this point because he's happy to trade a Force of Will and a blue card from an opponent that he knows is blue card, quote-unquote, screwed at this point. And Pyroblast is the best way to get value against his hand. I think it was just a smart name.
Wow.
I think that comes from experience from actually playing.
This deck's even better if you always hit with Cabal Therapy.
Yes.
Now here's Snapcaster. What are you flashing back here?
I believe Ancestral Recall.
That seems like a good one. Not just draw 3 cards, also make an elemental token.
You can cast Dig this turn if he wants to. And you pretty much always want to.
Why cast 1 Demonic Tutor when you can cast 2?
Exactly.
Yeah, this card is just a staple in Vintage nowadays.
Actually, I think he should have cast Demonic Tutor there.
To get...
You get Cabal Therapy. He has the Mox Jet that he could have taken Dig Through Time and Dak Faden and left his opponent with no spells in hand with Force of Will blue card in hand.
Well, what if you just find Cabal Therapy off Dig Through Time?
That works, but...
Less reliable.
Yes.
Yeah, he did dig into Force and Cabal Therapy.
I do think that was a mistake, but it did not punish him even a little.
Same effect.
Yeah, Cabal Therapy there effectively ends the game. He would still be able to cast Dig Through Time. He would have Force of Will with blue card in hand to either protect his Dig Through Time or stop any threat.
Unbelievable. Wasn't it just 1 turn ago that Jasper de Jong effectively Ancestral Recalled?
It was.
Well, he's going to try to do... He would like to do it again.
It was this turn that Magnus effectively Mind Twisted.
Yeah, Mind Twisted. Just took every spell out of his hand surgically.
Force of Willed instantly.
Yeah, Treasure Cruise. You got to try it, but yeah, no hesitation. This is why Magnus has been accumulating Force of Wills, trying to prevent his opponent from coming back into the game. Up to 5 elementals, so not quite lethal. Jasper de Jong's going to get 1 more top deck, and it's going to be an against...
If he has Lightning Bolt still in his deck, which he does, he can go get that with Demonic Tutor and end the game.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Demonic Tutor for Lightning Bolt. Magnus Lanto wins the match.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Magnus Lanto, ladies and gentlemen.
You got to go with the signature catchphrases.
Got to. Yeah, you see them doing a little bit of decompression. Magnus explaining what he was thinking. Jasper talking through it as well.
So Magnus goes to our only undefeated Vintage player, 4-0.
Yeah, we settled it. We had 2 3-0 Vintage players at the end of round 3, but they randomly got paired. Not randomly, they both parlayed that good start into seats here in the finals where they could settle it once and for all.
And we're going to move into Modern. These two played each other in Modern. Jasper was the winner. Jasper also played Ole, playing the same 75.
Yep.
Defeated him.
Right.
And so, Jasper went 4-0 in Modern, facing this deck twice, going 2-0. And Magnus went 2-2 in Modern. So Jasper's got to be feeling pretty good about his chances to at least even the score.
You mean we could run into that deck in Vintage Super League, you know. Although Rade is going to be in the play-in to try to get into the Vintage Super League for next season.
So you're saying I should start playtesting right now?
I mean, I think you've got plans for the next couple of matches maybe, but we're going to be right back. After this match, stay tuned. The players will turn to Modern, and we'll find out if Magnus Lanto can win it or if Jasper de Jong can force a third match.
and welcome to coverage of the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Brian David Marshall, and we are just about underway in our second match of the finals. Now we're playing a best 2 out of 3 matches, and currently Magnus Lanto on the left side of your screen has won the first match. It was in Vintage, and he finds himself up a match just needing to close out here in Modern. He's brought a spicy brew to the table here with an Elves deck featuring Collected Company. His opponent, Jasper de Jong, up against the wall here, BDM. He's got to win this match or else it's over.
Yeah, he was dismantled in Vintage, quite literally. This should play out a little, maybe a little less, with a little less volatility.
Yeah, that should be the case, though. It is interesting. Neither of these decks are particularly interactive with their opponent. You can see there's a Path to Exile down there. You'll see a removal spell here and there from Jasper's deck, but it still is a very creature-heavy deck, similar to how Birthing Pod was creature-heavy so that you could search up the different pieces. This one has to be creature-heavy so that when you play Collected Company, you got to hit 2 creatures off of it. They can be combo pieces or value creatures, but you can't have a lot of room for Path to Exiles and the like.
He does have one path in hand.
Yep.
But he also has the Viscera Seer in hand, so that's a big piece of the puzzle for him.
That is 1/3 of his combo here, and he has Collected Company as well.
He also has Fauna Shaman.
Fauna Shaman. I think he's just going to lead off with a Noble Hierarch. That's what he does. This is going to set up a next turn where he can play Viscera Seer and Fauna Shaman. And you can follow that up with Collected Company the next turn. In the meantime, Magnus Lanto,
he's just putting together the Elf Beatdown draw. He's able to play Elvish Archdruid next turn and just attack for a ton of damage. Well, a ton being 7.
7? That's a lot. That is a ton of damage. You see Gavany Township off the top here for Jasper. That is a potential long game plan against decks that let him build out his board, but when he doesn't have his combo, might be a little slow against what Magnus is doing, but we'll see about that.
Here's comes Viscera Seer.
Yeah, and Fauna Shaman is going to potentially set up combo shenanigans, especially after Collected Company goes off here. So now all of a sudden, Magnus Lanto is looking at the other side of the board going, well, he could be 1 or 2 turns away from setting up his combo. I have to do something.
He's just going to attack with everybody.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's going to play the Elvish Archdruid.
Yeah, he's going to put the pedal to the metal. Now, interestingly here, the Fauna Shaman, no fodder. There's no creatures in hand. This doesn't happen that often for Jasper, having just stone 0 creatures. Again, another reason why you can't afford too many slots for cards like Path to Exile there. But in the meantime, he's going to need to find one if that Fauna Shaman's going to go. Solid backup plan if he doesn't. Collected Company.
We could also see Magnus try to do something with his Quarter Collar.
Absolutely. Here. Oh, there's a lot he can get done here.
We saw that card be unbelievable during the Swiss rounds. The Burnt and Forged Tender, which popped up. It was in the Olirade playing the same deck, but Olirade corded up a Burnt and Forged Tender to protect his Spellskite against the Splinter Twin player.
At instant speed out of the board, just the one of, but when you're digging through your deck with a Quarter Calling, you can afford quite a few one-ofs, and he does have a decent amount of sort of silver bullet type creatures in the sideboard. And Magnus looks like he's pretty deep in the tank here about how he wants to proceed. Like you said, one simple line is just to play the Elvish Archdruid, rumble with the squad here.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do.
He's going to have a ton of mana next turn.
And maybe able to just set up an Azuri kill.
He could. I mean, the Archdruid right now taps for 4 mana on its own. All right, so crunch for 7. Jasper not willing to give up either of his creatures here on a trade for just an elf. He finds a Spellskite. Now, that's pretty good here. Remember, Magnus is not going to be interacting much with what Jasper's doing, and so the Spellskite is not a super important piece, and with the Fauna Shaman, it means he can ship that thing away.
So he could just be looking to hopefully have another turn, Collected Company into one of the pieces.
Yeah, well,
and then maybe Fauna Shaman into the other piece.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to need another turn to do that. He's only going to have total of 4 mana available here, so I think he can go Path to Exile the Elvish Archdruid and pitch the Spellskite to search up a combo piece here.
Yeah, killing the Elvish Archdruid definitely
You know,
seems like
he's going to need to do it now as well.
Yeah, here it goes.
Yeah, because otherwise it just gives Magnus so much mana on his turn when he untaps. You just can't let him have it. You can't even let him go to upkeep because of Chord of Calling. So he's just going to main phase it. He gets an extra forest out of the deal. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that Spellskite just pitched away to the Fauna Shaman for maybe for Malira here, which he can cast immediately. Oh, sorry, he can't cast it immediately because he decided to play his land tapped there. Okay.
So a second Chord of Calling for Lanto. As you see, the Nettle Sentinel doesn't untap.
This is kind of interesting now because if he plays that untapped, he can get rid of Spellskite, search up Malira, cast it, untap here. If he draws a creature, he can get Kitchen Finks. See how this thing ends up playing out for him here. Magnus has drawn Chord of Calling and shipped it back to Jasper, who is now going to activate. And let's see what he digs up here.
Spellskite doesn't do a ton of work in this matchup.
No, it's just his creatures are not going to be under threat. So once he gets his combo pieces on board, he's good to go. Doesn't need to worry about much from Magnesite, at least not before the sideboarding. Jasper combing through his list here. This is kind of interesting. He's got the sacrifice outlet. He needs a persist creature and either Malira or Anafenza if he wants to either gain infinite life or do infinite damage. Now, I say infinite, but that's not actually true. If you demonstrate a loop in real life, you can just say, I'm going to do this this many times.
I'm at a million.
I'm at a million. But here, you can't do that.
I was just wondering about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's the number you need to get to against
It's
the
high.
Elf Company deck?
It's high. Uzuri, we've seen Uzuri triggered Overrun 3 times in one turn and attack for 60, 70 damage. We've seen that in this tournament. So it's not like Jasper can just get up to 30 and feel like he's safe. So it becomes a clock thing. All right, he decides on Anafenza Kintry Spirit, which he does have the mana to cast here. He finds a land off the top, but his mana is getting a bit crimped here as he can play Anafenza but not Collected Company this turn.
And doesn't...
Yeah, he doesn't want to take any damage off the land since he's not going to do anything with it this turn anyway.
So it sounds like he might be waiting.
So he's going to use his mana more efficiently, though, by just playing a land, passing the turn back. That's going to give him Collected Company on end step. And he's going to be hoping to find a Kitchen Finks in the mix there.
Okay. Now we get to see Magnus do a little bit of tutoring.
This might be a lot. Yeah.
Here's Chord of Calling.
So what Magnus needs on his side is he can find Uzuri, but he needs a big hit of mana here to finish off Jasper.
So X is 3. So Collected Company in response.
Jasper's responding. He could just hit the combo here. I mean, you do get to look at 6 cards with Collected Company.
You could also whiff with Collected Company.
It does happen. It's very rare. He's found Eternal Witness and another
And a Bird of Paradise.
and a Birds of Paradise there. No, not bad. Is Witness getting back Path?
Get back Path. Yeah, it does
Yeah,
get back
does
Path.
get back Path. Okay. Now
He doesn't have untapped white mana.
No, he doesn't.
So Chord of Calling gets Uzuri.
Okay, so Magnus is trying to set this up to just win this turn, and I think he's going to be able to overrun here, though. Will it be lethal? Yeah, I think it is, right? 5, 10, 14, 18, and he can block with 2, 3, 4, 5.
I mean,
That's lethal.
regardless,
That's it.
even if he could survive, somehow he would need to decimate his board
Right.
to do so. Your favorite
Yeah,
effect in the history of the
overrun,
game.
Yeah, that's what it does. So
You
there
got to
we
work
go.
a little harder for that overrun.
Indeed. But the fact that he was able to flash in Azuri on end step and make sure that Azuri himself got the +3/+3 and trample and could attack, that's what earns him the win there.
So, yeah, that was the collected company for Jasper needed to actually hit both pieces.
Indeed.
And you wonder if he'd played could he have played the Overgrown Tomb face up and still had the white mana
To path.
to path there?
Yeah. Yeah, because remember, Azuri's in on end step. You path Azuri there, and now Magnus just doesn't have the punch that he needs. You can set up some pretty easy blocks there.
You saw a little bit of a grimace as you watched Jasper sideboarding.
I did see that. Magnus kind of always has the same expression. He's pretty chill down in the feature match area. When I interviewed him, I thought he was a little bewildered. I don't think he thought he was winning his semifinal match at all. I think he thought he was just done.
Looks like Jasper's starting on a 6-card hand here.
There's one hidden. Maybe not. Yeah, there it is. All right, Viscera Seer for the
Ironically,
mulligan
the
to 6.
card we couldn't see was the Viscera Seer.
Now, what about the start here for Magnus? He doesn't have a lot going on. He's got Heritage Druid and then
Yeah, Heritage Druid doesn't do much on its own.
No.
You need 2 more elves for
Yeah.
that to be relevant.
yeah, he needs some friends.
So both players have collected company in their hands. You're going to see an abrupt decay on a Heritage Druid? I don't think so.
No, you can wait until your opponent casts another elf. Interesting offer of a trade here. Magnus is certainly considering it. That's
Yeah.
a combo piece, and that Heritage Druid is not doing much here. And Jasper,
Except the
yeah, I think that's about the best case scenario. And in fact, he's now drawn an Elvish Visionary.
He's like, I've got so many more elves. I don't know how many more combo pieces you have, but I have a million elves.
No kidding. A second copy of Collected Company, though, kind of awkward here for Magnus. He has no mana acceleration in his elf deck, but if this game does proceed to the mid to late game, he's going to be able to fire off multiple copies of Collected Company and just flood the board with elves. You got to figure he's going to hit what he needs there, and no land here for Jasper. Wow, this thing could be over quick, BDM. This is going to be an Elvish Archdruid and an attack for 2. The Archdruid is going to get killed by Abrupt Decay, but then Collected Company into Collected Company is going to happen. And once that happens, I mean, Magnus can put out a really impressive board state with a pair of Collected Companies in a hurry. Oh, that was a land off the top there for Jasper, and it was much needed.
Yeah, now he's going to witness back,
The Windswept Heath, probably.
or possibly the Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. Let's see what he gets back. There's his graveyard. So the Viscera Seer is his other option, but
He's got another witness in his hand. When he's not close to needing the Seer. So he is going to get the Abrupt Decay, it looks like.
okay. Doesn't have a great target for it here, the Elvish Visionary. Not really a big issue, but this gets interesting. So Heritage Druid, but he's also drawn an Elvish Visionary, and this is going to give him the mana to play both of these creatures, make 3, play a land, and play Collected Company, though he drew Azuri. Now, one of the other interesting things that happens on Magnus' side is that he will try to set up a turn where he has enough mana to play Azuri and activate Azuri in the same turn. That way, in case he gets Path or Abrupt Decayed, he'll still have that overrun effect going. So it looks like for now, though, he's going to fire off an end-step Collected Company as he passes his
So
turn
you tap
back.
Heritage Druid and the 2 Elvish Visionaries. That gives you green, green, green in your mana pool. 1 colorless from the Cavernous Souls.
And he's going to be loading up that board quickly. Yeah, this is slipping away from Jasper. He does not find a land off the top instead of Birds of Paradise. He has that Abrupt Decay in hand, but no great target for it here at all. And again, Magnus is going to try to set up a turn where he can play and activate Azuri in the same turn, which effectively plays around Abrupt Decay.
So here's the end step.
This Elves deck is sweet.
Yeah, I love this deck.
Let's see what he gets.
So there's a Nettle Sentinel. There's another Heritage Druid.
All right, mana is not an issue. He's got enough mana.
That's where it's like, maybe we're not done with my end step yet. Maybe I.
Is he considering firing off the Abrupt Decay?
He's at least thinking about if he should. I don't think he will.
Yeah, it doesn't. So there's a Nykthos there. 2, 3, 4, 5. He doesn't have quite enough mana here to cast and activate Azuri and still have attackers. He can do that, but it taps down a bunch of the creatures because of Heritage Druid, taking them out of combat. So my assumption here is that we'll probably see him wait one more turn before firing off Azuri plus Overrun and trying to kill his opponent. He can get Collected Company down, which is going to get him even more mana from his Nykthos. And he could also just hit something like an Elvish Archdruid, which will just tap for, in this case, 2, 4, 6, 7 mana probably, maybe even 8. If you can tap an Elvish Archdruid for 8, you can cast Azuri and activate the ability all in one fell swoop. But it looks like Jesper is getting a little nervous here
Decay.
on a Nettle Sentinel. All right. Oh, there's that Elvish Archdruid we just talked about. And in fact, the coast is now clear for him as well.
He's got another Cavern of Souls.
Can he pile up 14 damage this turn? I don't think he can. So it's probably just cast Elvish Archdruid and then end step Collected Company.
What happens if he casts he can't cast Azuri here.
He can cast Azuri, and he can make the mana, but he has to tap down a Heritage Druid and, let's say, 2 Elvish Visionaries, leaving just 1 creature back. But if he casts the Elvish Archdruid here and passes, he will be able to Collected Company on end step, and assuming that the Archdruid survives, he's going to be able to tap it for 6 or 7 mana, play Azuri, activate it once or maybe even twice, and attack for the win here. Now, what he's considering is, does Jasper have any more removal? He knew about the Abrupt Decay coming back. That's in the graveyard now. So does he want to expose the Elvish Archdruid here? Probably so. Probably just make him have it, right? I mean, if you do it the other way, Jasper has no combo pieces going. So, one of his only wins is like land Viscera Seer, play Collected Company into 2 pieces or something absurd like that. And if you make him use removal, then he can't do that. So, all right. It looks like Magnus has made up his mind. Him and Ole Rade have been practicing with this deck. He's going to go back to the drawing board here. He's got plenty of time on his clock, over 17 minutes. Him and Ole Rade have been playing this deck quite a bit leading up to test it out. So he's going to be keenly aware of all the subtle interactions as well. I'm starting to think he might not come back from the tank here. He's so deep in it.
You think he drowned?
I'm hoping he hasn't. He's going to be drowning in mana if he plays that Elvish Archdruid and gets to untap with it. All right, he's made his mind up. There it is. Now, that's also going to open up an attack here.
Right. He's going to just play both. He's got 7 mana.
He's got 7 mana.
So he's going to play Azuri and overrun his last 2 elves.
That would be an attack for 10, which would leave Jasper just fine.
Well, 4 is not quite fine. I mean, it means he doesn't have a lot of room to maneuver.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that
Collected
Jasper
Company
just
instead.
straight up doesn't have a lot of room to maneuver here.
So there's a Scavenging Ooze. There's an Azuri.
And a redundant Azuri. And again, this plays so well because even if Jasper had a removal spell, he'd basically be forced to fire that off on Azuri during his turn, in which case Magnus could just play his own, tap the Archdruid, fire it off like twice at least, and an overrun here. In the meantime, 4 damage hits the red zone, and we could be 1 turn away from having our champion here, BDM. Magnus Lanto, 2-0 in Vintage, 1-0 so far in Modern, and there's a Kitchen Finks.
That's not gonna be
too late
enough.
here.
And even if he had some way to, like, Eternal Witness back, the Abrupt Decay, there's the Scavenging Ooze now on the board.
That's not going to get it done. There's a redundant copy of Azuri. Jasper's going to look through all of his options here and fire off a Desperation Collected Company. Magnus on the verge.
Yep, there's Anafenza.
$25,000.
There's the Kitchen Finks.
He doesn't have the sacrifice outlet.
No.
Wow, he hit 2 of the 3. But that's all he's got. And when he passes the turn, Magnus is going to know that he's going to be our champion.
What happens if he doesn't trade that Viscera Seer off on the first turn? Is he so far behind that it doesn't matter?
He had the combo right there.
Okay.
Here we go. Magnus Lanto, $25,000 gold
9
in the
mana.
Players Club and a seat in the World Championship on the line. How many overruns? There's 2. That looks like plenty from here. Right-click, attack with all, everybody into the red zone. And minus 39 is the final total. We have our champion, Magnus Lanto from Sweden. Congratulations to him. Again, $25,000 prize. He has gold in the Players Club. We're going to see him at all of the Pro Tours for the rest of this season and next.
World Championship.
World Championship
And
seat.
Magic Online Championship next year.
That's right.
So two huge year-end tournaments that he gets to play in addition to Pro Tour Magic 2015 in Vancouver.
That's
and
right.
all of next season, airfare and invitations to all those Pro Tours.
Congratulations to Magnus. I know that his friend Ole Rade is going to be super happy for him after having tested with him a lot for this. They also test for Pro Tours together. They're from the same town in Sweden. So, these guys can get together and battle on Magic Online or in real life whenever they feel the need. And a great performance from Magnus here. Also, congratulations to Jasper Young. Finishes second at $17,000. A really good showing here. He ran the tables in day 1. And he finished strong enough in day 2 to make the top 4 quite comfortably. He was the only person at X and 3 coming in, and he found himself all the way in the finals here, but he has fallen. Magnus Lantos, our champion.
Yeah, $9,000 apiece for Antonio Del Moraleone and Alexa Teleroff. So great jobs all around.
Yep, take a look at the prize
There,
payouts
take a
there as
look.
they go down. But again, I look to the bottom there, right? Gold status and that seat in the World Championship. I mean, if you're looking to become a professional Magic player, that's probably worth more than the prize money to you, right? I mean, that's a whole year of you being a pro Magic player and getting to take your real shot at it.
And I was talking to Kenji about this earlier, about the idea of playing in the World Championship, right? This idea like that you are, playing, you're playing Magic Online and you're competing, you're racking up your QPs, and then suddenly you could go from those QPs to sitting down with 23 trophies, platinum membership cards in the Pro Players Club, the best players from every region around the world, and getting to test your mettle against them.
Yeah.
And by the way, pick up some pro points and some money as you get started in the next season.
Yeah, I mean, it just sets you up beautifully to make a run for platinum, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, of the pro players, unless you're one of those players that has their eye on Hall of Fame, platinum is where you want to be. That's where you get paid to be a professional Magic player on a full level. You get flown out to everything, hotels, you get appearance fees. I mean, it's a big game. And if you get a chance to sit in the World Championship and queue for all the Pro Tours in one fell swoop, which is exactly what Lanto just did, that sets you up for the best possible chance to get platinum.
And I have one other question. When can I fire up Magic Online and start playing this Elves deck in Modern?
7 minutes. Before we do that, though, let's send it down for an interview with Magnus Lanto, our champion.
Hello, friends. Kenji Igashira here with Magnus Lanto, your Magic Online champion who defeated Alexa Telerov in the semis and then Jasper de Jong in the finals. Just tell us, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really great. Obviously, this day has been fantastic. Just felt I played really well the whole semis and the finals, and in the finals the decks just did what they were supposed to do. So yeah, it just feels great.
So walk us through the semis first against Alexa. How did that go?
The semis I was supposed to have a pretty big advantage, but just didn't have the draws on my side. So I was pretty sure I was losing. I lost the first game, and the second game I had to top deck and did it. And even the third game I didn't have a great draw, so I was lucky to get out of that one.
Yeah, it seemed like that match was really close. And then making your way onto the finals, I believe you, in Modern, Jasper, beat both of the Elves deck in the Swiss portion of the tournament. How do you think that matchup was supposed to go for you guys?
Honestly, I don't really know, because it's both such new decks. But I probably have a little faster clock, so if he doesn't have the natural combo, then I have a chance, and that's exactly what happened. He didn't have a fast combo, and then I killed him on turn 5, so...
That was really good. Well, let's get to the good part. I'm standing here with Lee Sharp, who has digital product manager for Mtgo events.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Sweet trophy. And now, if you want to hand him the check, Lee.
There you go. Best part. Congratulations. Enjoy. Thank you.
Your Magic Online champion, Magnus Lanto, ladies and gentlemen. Let's send it back to the booth.
All right, so you saw the big check there for Magnus Lanto. The cool trophy too. It's like glass that's shaped in a flame. He'll have that for the rest of his life. I also hear applause out on the floor.
Not pictured the giant deposit envelope that you use to bring it to the ATM.
How do you get that thing on the plane?
You know, you put that in the bank right away.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
You go to a
yeah.
local bank and deposit that bad boy. So once again, congratulations to Magnus Lanto, our champion. We're going to be seeing a lot of Magnus at the Pro Tour.
I wonder if that means
the
we'll see a
World
little more of
Championship.
Ole too now.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's been knocking at the door the whole time. You know,
Ole,
he played
of
in
course,
this
a Hall of
event.
Famer.
Yeah.
But you know, he could pick and choose when he goes to Pro Tours. But maybe a little more. You know, it's more fun to go. Obviously, they work great together.
Yeah, totally.
So. Yeah, kind of cool.
We might be able to see them. Well, it's been a great weekend. And in fact, even a Friday. This is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. We certainly thank you for joining us. We had a really great time. A lot of cool formats, vintage, modern, standard, and even booster draft. We got to see it all here at the Magic Online Championship. It's a unique event. I love working this event. No shuffling is nice. It goes pretty quickly as far as the rounds. We get the most amount of Magic in per minute for you. And we're really glad that you were able to join us as well. It is time, however, for us to depart. That's going to do it for the broadcast here. So for Brian David Marshall, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe signing off from Seattle. We'll see you guys next time.